Glory be to the triune God. Dearly beloved in Christ, let us continue on this journey of the fast of the apostles with the topic forgiveness, healing community and self. Forgiveness is a cornerstone of human relationships, pivotal in fostering understanding, healing wounds, and building resilient communities. It transcends personal conflicts, societal divisions, and historical injustices, offering a pathway to reconciliation and peace. In exploring the importance of forgiveness in building a strong and compassionate community, we delve into its transformative power through stories and reflections. Imagine a community divided by deep rooted animosities, where pain and resentment have festered for generations. If we look to the Middle East or closer home to the clashes of Christian denominations in Kerala, we can see this clearly. The power of forgiveness. Story of Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson. Once upon a time, in a quaint village, nestled between rolling hills and lush green fields, there lived two neighbors in the town of Willowbrook, Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson. They had been friends since childhood, sharing laughter, stories, and a deep bond that seemed unbreakable. Their families were close-knit, celebrating festivals together and supporting each other through life's ups and downs. However, as time passed, a misunderstanding arose between them over a trivial matter. What started off as a difference in opinion soon escalated into a heated argument fueled by pride and misunderstanding. Harsh words were exchanged, wounds inflicted, and their once strong friendship shattered like a fragile glass. Months turned into years, and rift between Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson deepened. Their families, once inseparable, now kept their distance, each nursing their own hurts and resentments. The village, known for its harmony and warmth, now felt the chill of their strained relationship. One rainy afternoon, as dark clouds loomed overhead and the air hung heavy with unspoken tension, fate intervened in an unexpected way. Mrs. Thompson's daughter, Emily, fell seriously ill. Despite the frostiness between the families, Mrs. Johnson heard of Emily's condition through a mutual friend. Overcome with compassion and a lingering sense of duty, she set aside her grievances and rushed to Mrs. Thompson's home. Standing on the doorstep, Mrs. Johnson hesitated for a moment, her heart torn between pride and concern. She took a deep breath, swallowed her pride, and knocked softly on the door. Mrs. Thompson, weary and worried, opened the door with surprise written on her face. Their eyes met, both reflecting the pain of years lost to bitterness. Mrs. Johnson spoke softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I heard about Emily. I have brought some soup. I thought maybe it would help." Mrs. Thompson, initially taken aback by Mrs. Johnson's unexpected visit, felt a surge of conflicting emotions. She looked at the pot of soup in her hands, then met her eyes again. Without a word, she nodded silently and stepped aside to let her in. Tears welled up in Mrs. Johnson's eyes as she turned to face her. In that moment, years of bitterness melted away, replaced by a tentative hope for healing. They talked through the night, sharing memories and regrets, forgiving each other's faults, and embracing the shared history that had once bound them together. The next morning, word spread through the village like wildfire. Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson, once estranged neighbors, were seen walking side by side down the village lane, their laughter echoing through the quiet streets. Their families, witnessing the miracle of forgiveness, followed suit, slowly but surely. bridging the gap that had divided them for so long. From that day onwards, the village of Willowbrook flourished once more with the spirit of unity and compassion. Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson's story became a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness, reminding everyone that it is never too late to mend broken relationships and rebuild communities based on love, understanding, and second chances. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32 says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." The story of Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Johnson teaches us profound lessons about the transformative power of forgiveness in community building. 1. Healing and reconciliation. 2. Empathy and understanding. 3. Strength in vulnerability. 4. Legacy of hope. In conclusion, forgiveness is not merely a personal virtue but a communal imperative, essential for building a strong and compassionate society. It empowers the individuals to transcend grievances, heal relationships, and collectively envision a future rooted in understanding and peace. St. Luke chapter 23 verse 34 says, "And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Addressing the Father, Jesus acknowledges God's ability to forgive their sins of crucifying Him, and it's safe to assume the Father will forgive whatever Jesus asks. Dearly beloved in Christ, let us continue with the fast of the epistles, keeping in mind forgiveness is the key to Lord's home. Thank you.